Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate were arrested in Miami. They were hunted down by U.S. Marshals. Reportedly, they were found through their social media use. And the U.S. Marshals, the U.S. court has decided, you know what, we're going to push the warrant that the UK has put out for their arrest. So, to give you a background on exactly where this is going to go from here, again, they're going to go to trial here in the United States. Now, this trial will not say whether they are guilty of any crimes, but it will decide if there is one, there's a significant enough crime where we will extradite them, a crime which both we would find punishable and they would find punishable. Two, is there enough evidence saying that that crime is legitimate where it is worth us sending them back to the UK? So 7 days from now, they are going to have that trial. And then, depending on the result, either they'll be released and the warrant from the UK will still be upheld, but the US will not pursue it, or we are going to send them back to Britain. Now, what makes this so ridiculous is the UK isn't actually interested in ensuring that these men are have to face justice for any of their actions. That is certainly not an interest of the UK government. This is almost entirely a purely political attack. And why are they doing this? Well, what do the Tate brothers represent and what have they represented? Well, the Tate brothers have essentially represented what happens when a society goes heavily into the feminine, when the women and the men both become significantly more feminine, and the jurisdictions and the way we carry ourselves in society go the feminine route. Well, the Tate brothers are the example when you actually try to push that upon men and they go the extreme other direction. So they are essentially the hyper masculine in a hyper feminine society. So Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, what have they done over the years? Well, they have promoted young men to be responsible for themselves, to take their own well-being into their own hands, to fight back against the censorship of the world, to be their own men, to get bands and get bitches. That is essentially what their brand is. And I'm sure that many of you listening to this, like, we all understand, look, we don't promote everything they did, right? We all know that the Tate brothers got rich off of a cam girl setup. All of us are anti-pornography. All of us think that is wrong. But that also doesn't mean that any of us should be in the belief that the Tate brothers should be locked away in prison. Because what they have represented for society, since they have gained their wealth and put themselves into the social atmosphere, has been overall more positive than negative. It has been the response of the masculine pushing against the overly feminine indulgences of the modern world. They have been promoting men to be more masculine, hit the gym, get money, get bitches. Like, who are we to push back against that? Does that sound so bad? Get big, get money, get bitches? Hell yeah, I support that message. I'm gonna be honest, I support that. I don't fuck with the pimp game. I'm not a part of it. I'm not pro pimp, but still I can sit here and say what they have represented has been overly positive for the future of society. Not because all of their actions are good or even everything that they push is good, but we kind of need that extreme response to the extreme situation that we are living in. It is a societal necessity for us to push for a better future. Now, that future, again, it doesn't represent everything that they do, but that response is still needed. We need the extreme opposite direction so that we can push against. All right, but let me frame this out. Let me paint a picture. Femininity over here, masculinity over here, society. It used to be a more masculine ran where we focus on logic and we focus on justice and making sure things are done the right way. Now, over time, through the extension of liberalism, we have taken this deadline here and pushed it the opposite way, where now we are on the extreme feminine, where that influences our political situation much more than anything else. So, with that, what do you have? You have a society which puts emotion first. You have a society which is overly empathetic to those who wish to do the society harm. That's why you see millions of migrants coming over here, and despite that it will harm the people living here, we have become too empathetic of everybody else, so we bring them here. And what do those people do? Well, they bring the culture with them. A culture which destroyed the fabrics of their own society, they bring that here, and now they push for that same culture in our society, which will inevitably destroy the very fabrics of what we call home. And that is not good. Why does the UK want to see the Tate brothers arrested? Well, it's quite simple. The UK is maybe one of the most feminine countries out there at this point. It's very gay, very liberal. We have a country which quite literally is arresting white people for social media posts which are a little bit too mean. A little bit too mean. So why do they go after the Tate brothers? Well, they have an influence on young men to stand up for themselves, stand up for their country, and not to be bullied. The UK wants to be able to bully young men. So they go after the Tate brothers. They're saying, hey, look, you want to live this lifestyle, we'll throw you in jail. You won't be allowed here. That's essentially what this is. It's an entirely political arrest. The UK actually cared about dealing with the crimes that they are alleging the Tate brothers committed. Well, they wouldn't allow these sex traffickers all across their country. They wouldn't be bringing them in droves. We wouldn't have an issue in the United Kingdom of immigrants running sex rings of young UK women. That just wouldn't be an issue there if the government actually cared about that problem, but they don't. They don't. This would be a very different situation if we could look at the UK political atmosphere and have any respect for it. But it's incredibly difficult to do so when they continuously allow for migrants to come in and do things much worse than what they are alleging the Tate brothers did. That's the situation. There is also very little evidence that the brothers actually did anything that they're saying. That's why the UK government is unable to push out any legitimate evidence against them. That's the reasoning. They don't have any real evidence. That's why the Tate brothers haven't been extradited. That's why they weren't sent back to the UK at any point over the last couple years. No nation has taken the alleged crime seriously. So it would honestly be a political embarrassment if the current administration allowed for the brothers to be sent back. Andrew Tate was a supporter of Donald Trump. Kristen Tate as well. They both spoke very positively of him. They are both legitimate reasons why Donald Trump won the election. They have enough influence where their positive speeches on the man, they helped him win. So for him to send them back to the UK on Me Too charges would be ridiculous. All the women who have been around the Tate brothers, everything that we've heard from people who haven't hidden their identity, anybody that we know is legitimately real has spoken very positively about them. Again, I don't support the cam girl business. I don't support the way they got their wealth. But I do think at times they are spreading a good message. A message of not getting bullied anymore. A message for taking back your country. Isn't that what we need more of? Isn't that what we are, the entire thing we are fighting for? They are legitimate allies in what we are aiming for. We want a society which is, again, ran and headed by men. Why do we want this? Well, when you allow women to take over all the powerful atmospheres, they bring in the migrants. They vote for the termination of an entire generation through abortion. A third of our generation is gone. We didn't allow that when men were heading society. We see countless counts of them making bad decisions politically. You wouldn't see criminals let out of the justice system constantly. A masculine ran society wouldn't allow for that to happen. Irina would still be alive if we chose to take criminal offenses seriously of minority groups. But our overly empathetic selves have decided no, it's okay. No, it's okay. Let them run the streets. They're just misunderstood. They're misunderstood, towering black men. Allow them to do whatever they want. No, no, we don't actually like that. We don't support that. We are strongly opposed to that. So we fight for that which is that is good. We fight for justice. We fight for that which deserves to happen. That's why we can't support Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate getting sent back to the UK. Again, it's entirely Me Too charges. It's almost certainly anything that they're going to be able to pile up against them is going to be women who are no longer happy with the treatment because it didn't work out in the long run. I severely doubt that the Tate brothers actually did the things they're accusing them of. I'm trying to be a little bit careful with exactly my language and saying this on here is, YouTube's TOS. I don't want to get flagged for anything. But so I'm not going to say exactly what they're charged for. I'm sure you can figure it out. Well, let's just think about it for a second. The Tate brothers, who are incredibly influential, decent looking dudes, hella bitches, why would they do that to women? Why? Well, honestly, let's just think about it for a second. Why would they have the need to do that when they can get a bitch to do whatever they want? Like these guys are legitimately pimps, at least formally. They are former pimps. I severely doubt that they have any necessity to do that. It just the story doesn't check out. It doesn't make sense. And for that reason, again, it would be an embarrassment for the United States to send them back to the UK. We don't have evidence that they committed any serious crimes. They have been positive for us politically for the most part. They have been a decently good influence on the young men of the nation. So, all I'm gonna say is like it wouldn't be logical for us to send them back. It would be bad because us sending them back would be us doing the UK's dirty political work. This isn't a case where it's like, man, these guys need to be brought to justice. It's the UK doesn't like what they're saying, so they're trying to scoop up any charges they can against them. The UK would not care if the Tate brothers were mosque dwelling Muslims who were imported into the country and committed serious offenses, because the UK has consistently looked past that. No, they only care because they don't like what they're saying, and that's what we've seen in the UK's criminal justice department for a great deal of time now. That's why they go after people who say things they don't like online. It would be unjust for us to do their dirty political work because they don't like the message that the Tate brothers are pushing. They don't like the fact that they're telling young men to be masculine again. They want young men to be weak and feminine. They want to be able to bully us, and that's something we just can't allow. And them arresting and throwing these two brothers in jail, it's bullying. It's political bullying to silence your opponent, and we just can't allow them. Another point I did want to make before I move on to the next subject is this also highlights how important it is that you keep your record as clean as possible in this movement. You can't have anything. You can't have anything that anybody can ever use against you. And why is that? Well, down the line, when they want to politically persecute you, they're going to find any little flaws in your character and run with it. Run with it. Any mistake you made in the past, they're going to find a way to persecute you for that. That's the importance of staying clean. Look, it's important to recognize we are on the political fringes, the political fringe of society. What does this mean? Well, they don't want our voice to be heard. They want to silence us. They want to push down our speech. They want it to be as quiet as possible. Anything they can use to silence you, they will use. And that's exactly what we're seeing against the Tates. They didn't come after him when they were just small time guys. When he was just a kickboxing champion, they didn't go after Andrew. But when he starts to use his influence and his platform to influence men to become masculine, to be stronger, to work harder, to achieve something more than themselves, well, then they start going after all these alleged former crimes. And the reason they can do that is Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate did have a very legitimate poor standing among a lot of women. They're able to go after them because they did things which were immoral. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. So they're going to use that to bring them down. So when you're part of an extremist group, when you're part of a group that's trying to change the very framework of how we see society, it's important to keep a clean record so there's nothing they can go back and use to silence your voice once it becomes powerful. So yeah, I think there's an important lesson we can all learn here about stay clean, stay good, don't fuck up. We got to be more perfect than our opponents because our opponents won't face the same persecution as we will. It will be incredibly important in the time coming to remain as morally solid and remain as somebody who truly can't be criticized and persecuted as possible. Because if you give them an inch, they'll take it a mile. So that's my message. That's what I think we need to be learning from this is we got to be careful in this movement. We got to be incredibly careful. But yeah, if the Trump admin allows for these men to be extradited, it would be a massive political embarrassment for the United States. It would say, hey, we're willing to do your Me Too movement dirty work, which would be a shame, and it would be, dare I say it, quite. So, Trump, if you're not a slur. If you're not a homosexual, if you're not a ragingly flamboyant dude, you actually didn't suck, Mr. Bill Clinton, like some have alleged you had. Don't allow for these men to be sent back, because that would be kinda gay.